In this video, I'm going to fully explain the pentatonic scale. Even though you've probably heard of this scale before, we're going to start at the beginning and assume no prior knowledge, and we're going to cover everything that you gotta know. This includes not only how to play the scale, but also how to understand the scale. Kind of how this scale works under the hood. The end result being that you can make your own music and also understand and decode songs that you already love. Let's start with how to play the scale. So the first step to playing the pentatonic scale is taking your first finger and putting it on the 5th fret of the low E string. This note's called A. That'll be important in a second. Then you're going to take your 4th finger and put it on the 8th fret of that same string. Then when we go to the A string, it's going to be the frets 5 and 7. D string is going to be 5 and 7 as well. G string, 5, 7. Then we go to the B string, it's going to be 5, 8 again. And then the high E string will also be 5, 8. So the whole scale, very slowly, is this. 5, 8, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 8, 5, 8. And it's the same notes if you play down the scale backwards. So it's 8, 5, 8, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 8, 5. So that's how you play the scale, but like I mentioned before, this video is mostly about how to understand the scale. And I think the best way to explain it is to break down the official name of this scale. What we just played is called the A minor pentatonic scale. Let's break down each of the words in the title. First is A, and if you remember just a second ago, I brought special attention to the 5th fret on the low E string, this note, A. This is called the root note, and it's the first note in the scale. Basically, it's the note that the scale is named for. So one of the things that's special about pentatonic scales is you can move them all over the place. They're not just planted in one spot. The way this works is if we take our root note, if we move it to like the 3rd fret, for example, this is G. So long as we keep all of our same finger spacings, then we can still play the minor pentatonic scale, only in this case, if the root is a G, it'll be a G minor pentatonic scale. And this works all over the fretboard. I could make the root here on C sharp, and so long as my fingering for this scale was still 1, 4, 1, 3, 1, 3, and so on, we would have the C sharp minor pentatonic scale. What about that next word, minor? Luckily, this is pretty simple. In the same way that minor chords have a dark, sad sound to them compared to major chords, which generally sound a little brighter and happier, this is a minor scale, so it's going to have that dark, mysterious sound. So that's why this is an A minor scale, but what about that final word? What makes this an A minor pentatonic scale? Well, if we break down that word, that prefix penta means 5. And in this case, that means that this is a 5-note scale. And I know that's a little confusing at first. I'm talking about prefixes. This is starting to feel like a lecture. I just told you that a scale position that clearly has 12 notes only has 5. How does all of this work? It's a lot simpler than it seems, and the key to understanding it all is this idea of what is an octave. In music, an octave is a distance. It's a distance where notes start to repeat just in a higher register. So for example, if I have an A right here, and I want to play an A up here, I can. It's the same note, they're both A's, but this one is clearly higher. You would say these are octaves of each other. And this can apply to any note in the scale. For example, and this isn't important to know right now, I'm just trying to demonstrate this for you. The second note in the A minor pentatonic scale is a C. The octave of that is right here. So if we take this simple scale that only has 5 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we use this idea of octaves, we can repeat these notes all the way up all 6 strings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the high E string is 1, 2 again. This is especially important when you want to be shredding and melting faces and you don't just want to be confined to the low strings. So that's how you play the scale, and you're well on your way to understanding it, but there's one big glaring question I haven't answered yet. The title of this video promises a full explanation of the pentatonic scale, but we've only been talking about the minor pentatonic scale so far. And that's confusing. It makes you wonder, are these two the same thing? Is the minor pentatonic scale like the pentatonic scale, but with training wheels on? What's going on here? The truth is, the word scale kinda has 2 meanings. This is an unplayable concept that only exists in music theory, and this is the real-world version of this. Let me explain. We have this idea that scales are these clean lists of notes with definite beginnings and ends. These are the notes of the A minor pentatonic scale. And real quick, I know we've been using A minor as the example key a lot in this video. We could use any of the keys. They all function the same. I just like the way the letters in A minor look. Anyway, I was saying that we have this intuitive sense that scales have beginnings and ends. Here's the beginning and here's the end. The issue with this is that because of octaves, which is that concept we talked about earlier, where notes repeat after certain distances, in reality, you can just repeat all the notes in both directions forever. And I'm not exaggerating, scales are literally infinite. Despite my best efforts, I only own a finite number of sticky notes, but you can imagine this list goes on in both directions forever. So this is an inoperable idea, because what would you even do with this? Where would you even start? You kind of just have to pick a place to start. So how about let's just start with A? And we know it can only have 5 notes before it repeats, so here's our scale. We end up with the A minor pentatonic scale, and if you take these notes and you map them onto a guitar, you get this, which is the minor pentatonic scale shape we've been talking about this whole time. And just so you know, it's not like we're trying to have a minor pentatonic scale shape, it's just that we have to start somewhere, and if we start here on A, we end up with the most useful pentatonic scale shape. There are 4 other pentatonic scale shapes besides minor, but they're not as useful when you're first starting out, so we'll cover them in a future video. So to answer the original question, this is the pentatonic scale with a capital P, and this is the real-world version of that, and that is the minor pentatonic scale. So some of that might have been kind of confusing. It's certainly nerdy, talking about infinitely repeating sets and that kind of thing. Hopefully I didn't lose you, but if you take anything away from that, I just want you to understand that the minor pentatonic scale isn't less than the pentatonic scale. It's just that reality forces us to pick a version of the transcendent concept that is the pentatonic scale. So we might as well use the most useful version. So now I'm going to prove to you that the minor pentatonic is the most useful version. I'm going to use snippets from famous guitar-driven songs to prove that the minor pentatonic scale is the most useful, starting with like the coolest riff of all time, which is Layla by Derek and the Dominoes. This song is in the key of D minor, so you know that the D minor pentatonic scale is going to apply. Here's the riff. As you can see, in this song, Eric Clapton is just playing notes from the D minor pentatonic scale on the B and high E strings. He does have this one random note thrown in here, but don't worry about that right now. Let me give you another example. I like the song Miss You by the Rolling Stones. This song is in the key of A minor. Here's the riff. Again, you can see that the notes that Keith Richards is playing there are just from the middle of the A minor pentatonic scale. I could give you examples of this for days. I do encourage you to Google and YouTube search examples of songs that use the minor pentatonic scale. You're going to find a ton. I think the sheer number of songs that use this scale make it really clear that this is the most useful scale in all of music. And the cool thing about understanding this scale now is you can look at a song like Layla or like Miss You or whatever other song you want to learn that has the minor pentatonic scale, and you can see how your guitar heroes are using this scale. I can see, oh, Eric Clapton is playing, these notes, and Keith Richards is playing these notes. This is how these guys are using this tool. This was a huge revelation for me when I was first learning this scale. I was blown away by the fact that songs don't contain notes that are just randomly kind of thrown together and happen to sound good together. There are rules and scales that govern which notes are going to play nicely together. And the super fun, super obvious application of these ideas is being able to use this scale to take a guitar solo. And lucky for us, the principle behind that is really simple. All you do is just match the key of the song or the backing track that you want to solo over to the corresponding pentatonic scale, and you're good to go. I have an example backing track in the key of A minor. Let me show you guys how you can get started creating your own guitar solos using the minor pentatonic scale. Okay, so I'm just going to listen to it. Like I said, it's in the key of A minor, so I'm going to use the A minor pentatonic scale, and I'm just going to purposely confine myself to only using these notes and just try to be creative. So you can see that it doesn't have to be overly profound. I just want you to start getting used to noodling around with a backing track on. If you want a deeper dive for how to start improvising solos if you've never done that before, I made a video, and the first step in that video is to learn the minor pentatonic scale. That'll be linked in the description. I do want to address really quickly the fact that we've only talked about the minor pentatonic scale, so right now you can only jam in minor keys, which is no problem. We'll talk about how to jam in major keys next week. And if that video is out by the time you're watching this, I'll link it in the description. But anyway, you guys, that just about does it. We talked about how to play the minor pentatonic scale. We talked about how to understand it, kind of music theory behind it. Then we talked about how useful it is and how you can use it to understand music that you already love and create your own music. I hope this helps, and as always, thanks for watching.